Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. How's it going, man? How are you doing?
Doing as good as I can, which is the same answer I gave last week. How are you doing?
Uh, oh yeah, I'm all right. I don't know. It feels like that Mainz game was so long ago, which is, I guess, good. I've separated myself enough from that. And I think it was a little bit delayed in record. Usually Carver and I like pretty quick, like maybe on a Monday or even Sunday. We're like, hey, when you want to record this week? And I think it was maybe.
It's
I
like
mean,
last night.
it's pretty much yesterday when I was like, Carver, hey man, you want to do an episode or
Yeah.
what? We don't really want to talk about the Mainz game that much. We'll obviously review it, probably not as in depth as we normally do, because I don't think anyone really wants to talk about that Mainz game. But we'll go over that and then just go over some other. I mean, we're in the international break, so we can kind of open things up, and that's why we're also going live. Sorry if you're listening on the podcast the next day, but we're live on the YouTube. Shout out to Chaz, who's already in the chat. A few other people watching too. So if you jump in, make sure you send any questions or respond to anything we're saying, so we can get you involved. Because we do want to open this up a bit. We'll get some questions. I threw some stuff in our Discord earlier, some questions on there. So plug the Discord. You can find the link. Nope, I can't. If you're watching live, you can't find the link. I guess I can drop it in the YouTube. But yeah, join our Discord if you haven't already. And I mean, you want to get into Mainz? Just get into it. The real exciting game that is Mainz.
Let's just do it. I was going to use the word disappointing. Very
Not
disappointing,
exciting?
in fact. No.
Oh, okay.
I was excited to see if this team was actually going to improve, but you can't really get a good read of that whenever this team has been run into the ground and ridden with injuries. So, you had two encouraging wins against Leipzig and then in the Champions League, and then you're right back to, more congested fixtures, and this team is continuing to struggle against another beatable mid-table club like Mainz. I mean, not so fun fact here, but the last time they won at home in the league was back in May when they won 3-0 against Dortmund. So this is yet another team we're struggling against.
Yeah, I mean, coming off, we had those 2 wins back to back, so trying to feel somewhat positive after that. But after losing 5, like, it can feel good for a little bit, but this was the real test, right? Like, this is where we said it so many times, like, all right, if you guys want us to be excited, if you want us to take you seriously, you actually got to win a freaking road game, which we still haven't done in so long. And yeah, this went south pretty quickly, but we'll get in the lineup. Meyer in goal, because obviously still ridden with injuries. I believe this was the only first team guys on the bench. Get this out of the way, was Malen. Couteau did come back. So Malen, Couteau, and Cole Campbell, if you're counting him. Again, a little back and forth on that. But at least Couteau, we had 2 full senior members and on the bench this time. But Meyer in goal. We saw Rierston slot right back in, coming back from injury, playing left back, because, of course, Benzabaini out with yellow card accumulation. Our 2 center backs, Schlotterbeck and Chan, lasted a good while in there. And then Gross at right back again. We had Mecha kind of holding mid with Brandt and Sabitzer, and then Gittens and Bayer out wide. Saw Bayer out as the right wing, right mid again, and Girassi up top. Thoughts?
Again, nothing new. It's the same lineup that you're going to have to continue going with. Of course, ideally, you want some rotation. You want fresher legs. You don't want to risk these injuries, right? But Shaheen at this point is just playing anything he can to get a result, to keep his job, to stay employed. So you are going to continue trying to just pray that nothing happens to the likes of Girassi or whoever, and just try to grind out any results on the road, which we continue to fail at. This was before even the red card. Chan was sent off, in the 25th, 26th minute. It was nothing really to write home about either. You had a small sample size, again, to see if you were actually trying, or we were, really improving at these last 2 games, because, there were encouraging performances, but now you go down 10 men. Before and after that, it was pretty disappointing. I mean, even like in the very opening play, that first, sound of the whistle, the ball goes immediately to Gross. We come under pressure, play it back to Chan. Chan boots it up. Then we lose possession in our third, almost from a good attack from Mainz. So it's the same problems that we've been seeing, really, in possession, out of possession. This team is really hurting for any sort of confidence or results at the moment, at least definitely on the road.
Yeah. I was going to touch on Rierson a little bit. Only I was like, I know you said like we got to play whoever to get a win. I was a little surprised to see him start immediately, but then again, like, who are you going to play it? at left back because really the only other option is Schlotterbeck, and then who are you playing at center back? Like um, I get that, but it was one like I didn't. I liked seeing Rierson back in the lineup. He went 74 minutes. I did think I missed Benzabini aerially a little bit. Like I feel like that's something I've noticed quite a bit in the last few games was just him. Like he's such an aerial threat, defense and attack. Like I think the 2 goals in our last match, like he got his head on, came from corners or crosses in, and he was in there kind of causing havoc. I know the Bayer goal, he flicked it on initially to where Bayer was able to flick it after his header. So I did miss like him aerially, although I did like seeing Rierson back in the lineup. And I mean, knock on wood that he doesn't get injured on this international break, but good to have him back. And Couteau, good to see him get some minutes too. Yeah, I don't know. From here, we just go Chan getting his red card, and then Mecha falling back to center back, and it's kind of how they got those first 2 goals.
Yeah. The team really just lacks like a general sense of leadership. Chan is not a great captain. Great example is him getting sent off that early on in a pretty unnecessary challenge. But especially whenever he goes off the field, you are really lacking a sense of direction from this team. You have unproven players, you have an unproven manager, you have a general sense, or just a lack of a general sense of leadership and direction in this team. I mean, and it shows that like the uncertainty that we have with the ball too, and just how we defend. Mainz is not an isolated incident. I've said this before. Too many oppositions in the league, beatable oppositions, have become Dortmund's kryptonite, from the likes of Mainz, from the likes of Bochum. Of course, Stuttgart are a much better side than the other two, but them as well. Lots of teams who generally fall into mid-table, if not even lower, are having the belief that they can have a go at us. And you're seeing it not in the results, but also in the performances this season stretch out so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just going to continue too, right? Like the longer we don't win on the road, like all these teams are going to know that Dortmund can come here and we can easily turn them over. We'll get this result. Even teams like who haven't won on the road. It was the same thing with Wolfsburg in the Pokal. Like they hadn't. I think maybe they'd only won 1 at home. Like they've been pretty bad at home, and yeah, it took them into extra time to finally get the goal, but we couldn't get anything up until that moment, like before that, right? And then Augsburg, as you mentioned. Now this one in Mainz, I mean, the red card definitely plays into it, but we've still been so poor on the road, and we're going to talk about the board and everything that's been reportedly said or not said, but what we've been seeing on Twitter. But
it's a report from Bild.
It's a report. It's somewhat reported. Whether you want to take it seriously or not, checks out to me. Seems like it's probably somewhat. Anyways, we're going to talk about it. But what to them right now, what they see is top 4 is still in reach. And like technically, yes, but if you can't win on the road, that ain't going to last too long. Like you can we haven't even been getting draws on the road. We got our first one and only draw. Werder Bremen was the first away match of the season, and since then we haven't been able to do anything. Like I'm not counting the Brugge game in there because like trying to get top 4 in Bundesliga, that's what we need to do. Yeah. And it's just not realistic to make top 4 and keep this going. And we're enough games in now, like there's a serious problem with us not being able to get a result on the road.
Yeah, the general sense of play on both sides of the ball has been very underwhelming and just not, up to the standards that should be set for this sort of club. I mean, we do have better phases of build-up whenever it comes to like progressing into the middle third, even into the attacking third at times. But right whenever we get into that attacking third, it becomes static, becomes uninspiring. Let's get it to Gross and try to whip it across to Guirassy. It's effective, sure, sometimes. But outside of that, there is no like plan B. And I wouldn't even necessarily call that like a clear plan A whenever you're just kind of whipping in crosses in Shalah. So, the attack is really suffering at the moment. And, of course they're hurting with injuries, but there needs to be just better phases of play. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to this team starting to be more and more toothless as the season goes on, which is, the congested fixtures, like I mentioned, the injuries, but still a lot of this also comes down to coaching, but also recruitment too. I mean, the blame can go all around from top to bottom. It's enough to go around.
I will just point to my one positive from this match, and my glimpse of hope is the quick goal. the response, even being a man down at this moment, because I think they scored in the 36th, and we were able to get that penalty, which great kind of solo effort by Sabitzer, who won the ball back, gets the ball up to Girassi as he's like getting tackled. And then Girassi, of course, gets taken out in the box, and he had like really great movement on that to take the foul and get hit. And in that moment, when he got the foul and then buried the pin, I was like, Girassi might just win this game for us single-handedly. Like I had some
He's
hope
done that a handful of times already.
seeing that little play, that piece of play, and then I think there were a couple other moments too when it was still tied to 1-1 where Girassi was trying. He was trying his best to do whatever. Like we can't always get him the service, especially being down a man. But yeah, I had some hope for a little bit until I think they scored that second one right before stoppage time. That's my one positive though, was the hope that died.
Yeah. Sabitzer did win the ball a handful of times up higher on the field with his counter pressing and put us in good positions. But besides the penalty, there was not a single shot on goal all game from Dortmund. I mean, the XG was what, like 0.9? And of course, more than half of that comes from the penalty. So you could just see right there when in terms of if you look at the data or you just data aside and just strictly look at the performance on the field, it's not good enough in terms of our attack and definitely defense as well.
I mean, you got anything else from this Mainz game, or do you want to get into everything else?
Outside of, at least we were lucky that Leipzig and Leverkusen both dropped points. They're like the only reason that those two, or even other teams as well, like Stuttgart, are underperforming compared to last year. But those other clubs dropping points is like the only reason that we even have a sniff at top four at this point. We should be even lower somehow, and we sit in seventh. The other weekend we're in like 10th. So thankfully, other oppositions are not doing that well either.
Yeah, Dortmund currently 7th on 16 points. Just a little reference point, Bayern is 26 points already. Pretty big gap to try to catch up. Not that it'd be nice if we tried to win the league. Not that I think we're trying now, but
I think you could pretty much write that one off already. Honestly.
Leverkusen in 4th currently with 17. So we are just a point off 4th, which seems crazy that we are that close. I guess it technically is in reach. But like, again, if we just stay with this form of not winning on the road, that gap is just going to keep widening and we're not going to get anywhere close. And then, of course, we're international break. So next match isn't until November 23rd against Freiburg. It is home. So maybe we'll come out strong. We'll get a nice win. We'll be happy for a little bit, and then we head out on the road again to Dinamo Zagreb, and then Bayern Munich at home. So maybe our home record will come to an end at that point. I don't know.
Probably. Thank God for this break coming up.
Injuries have, of course, played a really big part. Like we've still had so many guys injured. I saw Adeyemi now will now be back to full training, so he's got some extra time during this international break. We just got Rierson and Couteau back. Hopefully we'll see some other guys start to trickle into. Was there another win?
Reina had another setback, unfortunately, so he's going to be out even longer, which sucks because I really think this team could use someone like him right now. But
happy birthday to Reina, by the way. Happy birthday. It'd be nice if you would play.
Yeah.
But I mean, this international break, I don't want to say it's coming at a good time. It's like, thank God we actually survived, made it here. Like it could have come a couple weeks ago. But that will definitely help, hopefully, getting a few more players back. I know Gregor Kobel did travel with the Swiss national team. I don't know if he's going to play at all, but I mean, if he traveled, at least he'll be training a little bit, and that's good signs there. But yeah, let's get into some of the questions. And right now is a good time if anyone wants to put some questions in the chat or on our Discord. I did ask earlier, and we have talked about this kind of coaching scenario before. So I put a poll in our Discord to ask. And this is more fun. I didn't want anyone replying and giving like scenarios or anything like that. It's purely hypothetical and just for fun. And mainly I just want to see if anyone actually wants to stick with Shaheen for the rest of the year. It looks like that's going to be the case with what we're seeing from possibly the board on Twitter. But if you had to choose one to finish the season, I know there's a few other coaching options, but I just put these ones in here. I felt like they were the most, not likely, but potential probabilities. So if you had to choose who to finish out the season, would you remain with Nuri Shaheen, Erik ten Hag? I know we talked about him a couple weeks ago. Christian Streich and Niko Kovac. The highest votes was for Nuri Shaheen and Niko Kovac. Erik ten Hag was in second, technically behind those two, and then Christian Streich was Lily at the bottom. And then I know, Carver, you've talked about Graham Potter before, but just if you were the board, if you were deciding who would you want to bring in right
I
now?
think I was the only one that voted for Strike.
Did you?
If I'm not, I think so.
I
Which is
think
I
there
was a
was
little
one
shocked
vote
by.
on him.
He would
So.
be my number one coach for a number one reasons. I mean, he's German. He's shown loyalty and integrity with Freiburg, of course. If you look into his history, he's got a pretty interesting upbringing in terms of his career. I mean, he was like an educator, and he's big on club core values. Of course, he has gotten Freiburg to play some great football and brought them into Europe too, and just some great spots over the past decade plus. So he would be my number one choice. Behind him would be probably a tie between Potter and Kovac. I mean, Kovac just because of his experience in the Bundesliga, even with big clubs such as Bayern Munich. Potter, same way with other big clubs, has also taken Brighton to a lot of great places as well and played great football with them. Not sure how strict the board is going to be in terms of the coach having to speak German or be German or whatever it is. But those are probably my first few names, or at least that are relatively realistic and still good appointments.
Yeah, I didn't put Potter in there specifically the kind of the English German thing, but yeah, I know Chaz just said something about Strike deserves his respect. Chaz also said in the Discord, he said he wanted to give a shout for bringing Lucien Favre back. He said that's my real answer. He deserves redemption because his leash was never this long as it's been for him. I mean, Shaheen so far and Terzic, I think the year before. Of course, it's all hypothetical. What we've seen from the board is as long as like we're still top 8 in the Champions League and top 4 in Bundesliga is still in grasp. It's nice that you say that, but and obviously we're still like top 8 Champions League, but I don't know. You don't know how things are going to go, and to the benefit of Shaheen, like we don't know how things are going to go. Maybe he will be able to turn things around once some players start going back, but just kind of the trend we've been on doesn't look great, and that's where I personally feel like it'd be better to just kind of get a coach who has experience. Don't let this be, however, you said it so well a while back too on an episode like this. We should not be a club that's allowing, like, it should not be a learning place for coaches. So I wish we just had a coach that kind of had a little more experience to really get us back into shape.
And look, you have the anecdotal success stories of, unproven managers like the likes of Alonso, like Company. I get that, but it has not worked out for us. And I think whenever you're surrounded by the board who has continued to decline in recent years, there's just so many problems with the club. It's not going to be any easier for a manager to learn on the job like this with Shaheen, with Terzic, with a handful of others that you could appoint to this sort of position. So I just don't think we're in a good position right now to continue down that road and just hoping and relying on nostalgia to bail us out of a situation like this and reoccurring situations like these.
So the next question I was going to move into the winter transfer window, and like again, this might be hypothetical. Ideally, if we could bring some players in, what positions, what players specifically. But let's get into. Do you want to talk about like these quotes that have come out from Build? And apparently the bosses have sat down and have these meetings and are confident in the squad we have. It's saying that we don't need to sign anyone in the winter because they're confident with the squad built. And there is something to say, like they did bring in a lot of players over the summer, but they're confident with where they are. As long as everyone's healthy, they think they're confident in the defense. They also said now that Kuto and Rierson are back, that fixes the bottleneck in the fullback position, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Was there anything on this you wanted to expand on, or just your thoughts, like reading all this stuff? Like there's quite a few tweets. If you just go to BVB News blog, they were the ones kind of putting this out. There's a lot to read, but I mean, the gist of it is they don't want to. Lisu chiming in said they are delusional, which was my thought, or like they're delusional, they're insane. My thought when I was reading this, that they had a meeting and decided, no, we don't bring anyone in the winter. We're good. Like 10 games in the Bundesliga season, we've seen that we are clearly not good. If Emre Can is stepping in to play center back because you're already missing 2 center backs, then we are not good. If Pascal Gross is having to play right back because we're down 2 fullbacks, like that is not good. I don't know how they can think that we're set and we're good. You can't just rely on everyone being healthy because that's never going to be the case.
I don't have much to add to that. These reports are from Bild, so again, treat it as like a broken clock, whatever. But there is definitely some truth to that. Reports aside, I mean, you are seeing the board here really start to fumble different aspects of this club in recent years. So
Some response we got in our Discord, which 100% makes sense. Chris said, strengthening the squad, besides goalkeeper and 9, we couldn't turn down help anywhere, center back, left back, right back, 6. Also, maybe like another 8 or a 10 to push Brant more. I know it's kind of, he was also saying if Reyna ever got healthy, he could fill that role. Shout out to Nick from Boston, who also kind of said similar thing about Reyna. Whew, embarrassing voice crack right there. It's a terrible time to have. When you can just edit that out on the podcast, but dang it, we're live. Shoot. Carver, you want to take over? I'm done.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm also thinking that every position, almost every position you could think of in this team needs more investment and is pretty thin. I mean, seriously, every single one. You mentioned center back, you mentioned 6. We definitely need another number 9. With the way that Durnville and his uncertainty if he's ever going to be healthy, I would argue you probably even need another winger, not like a hybrid winger like Adeyemi and Malen, but something different. You can keep going down the list. This team needs a lot of investment. It's been neglected for a while in a lot of departments, and the board just simply needs to do better. Again, the standards from top to bottom have to be better than this.
So another thing that was mentioned was the possibility of Malen. And say if he were to go in the winter, maybe that does open the door for bringing someone in because you just kind of flip that cash. But also, I don't love, like, we clearly need investment all throughout the squad. And if you bring Malen in, I think it was kind of said, like, use that money to strengthen the squad in other positions, which is 100% needed. I do think you miss a little depth if Malen goes. And I also don't like the hinging, like bringing other people in, hinging on Malen going. Like, I wish we could just bring people in regardless of what happens. Lisu chiming in says more Vetchin, which I fully agree. Like, I kind of surprised we haven't seen him as much, especially with the depth we don't have right now. I think there is a little more depth in the midfield. We haven't been completely depleted there yet, but yeah, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen him like at all. I don't know if he subbed on this season. If so, like, I can't remember.
They got a handful of minutes, if I'm not wrong. There's been a handful of times you could have brought him in as well, whether as a 10, as an 8. You could even argue in some games as a 6 in moments too.
Going back to Malen, though, because obviously there's been reports that he's not happy. He switched his agent, possibly looking for a move. And I think we've heard this before of Malen not being happy. If he's not happy, if he wants to go, if we can get some money for him, then I guess sell him this winter if it's a possibility. I do feel we're a little short, though, because I don't trust like Durnville as depth, just given his constant injuries. I've said that before. I do like that we've been seeing Cole Campbell. So that's a possibility of maybe he just continues to get more minutes. He's definitely hasn't shown too much yet, but I think that's just comes with experience. So if he keeps getting more time, and then the fact that we have Bayer now playing out on the right wing a little bit, I don't love it, but if that's an option, then I think if Adeyemi and I just like I think Bayer gives us a little more depth, and if we can rely on Cole Campbell, then that's okay. Like, I still don't love it if Malen were to go this winter, but if he doesn't want to be here, and again we can get some cash and then maybe bring in someone else, then I'm cool with that. But where are you on the Malen? Because the Discord was voting 83% to sell this winter versus 17% for keeping him.
Yeah, the numbers that we're seeing reported is a bit lower than what we would have hoped compared to his value, I guess, maybe a calendar year ago, whenever we were hearing numbers tossed around between like 40 and like maybe even mid 50s. Now we're looking at, I mean, I could be wrong here for what I've seen, like 25, maybe 30, which is about the same, if not maybe even a little less than what we invested in for him in the first place. Yeah, I don't have too many strings attached for Malen here. I've gone back and forth with him for a long time just because he's been very inconsistent for this whole time really being here. You figured after the spring he would hopefully really try to carry some of that form into the new season, but that has not really happened. He has had moments, but again, the first half of the season, he continues for the most part to be pretty underwhelming. So yeah, if it's got to be invested elsewhere, I think it needs to happen, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Carver, are there any particular names that you like to bring in into any position, whether it's a 8, 10, fullback, center back, Anyone stand out to you?
You know, I'm going to sound stupid for saying this, but I don't really have the best answer for you at the moment. I've had names come and go in my head over the past month or so, but I just haven't really thought about that too much, and I don't want to give a half-assed answer. But I feel like I can do some more research and narrow it down to a nice, clean list of some players here in the coming weeks. I just have a lot of other shit going on right now. I can't really think of anything.
It's okay. I mean, we got time. It's still maybe we'll dive a little more in the winter, and maybe we'll know more. Maybe we'll actually like get linked with some players. I'll throw this is a very random shout, and I don't think a lot of people would agree with it. I just kind of run on vibes and what I'm feeling, and I have always loved Joe Scally so much. He's a little more of a right back, and obviously we have Rierson and Kuto to play that right back position, but he can play on the left, and then obviously Rierson can play on the left. And if we just need another fullback, he's Bundesliga proven, and it's the USMNT biased in me. I've liked him ever since I saw him play for USMNT, so I'm like, bring him in. He's friends with Gio. Maybe somehow he can keep Gio healthy, get him on his diet or his training regimen. I don't know. Keep that kid out.
Just the juju.
I don't know. And then Lisu also did say maybe we should have picked up Cherokee, which I know he was a lot of kind of in the big discussion around him in the summer about bringing him in. Chaz, shout out Chaz again, said I feel like Malen would rather stay, A, because he's getting paid, B, keeps him in national team consideration. Obviously, I think that kind of depends on where he goes. If he can go somewhere where he's getting playing time, I would love him to stay from like a player standpoint. Like I'm not in the camp of Malen hate right now. Currently, I had been before, but I think last year I think he was her joint top scorer, right there with Fulkrug. I think he's been okay this year. Like I don't think anyone's been great this year. I would much rather keep him here if he's like happy, but it doesn't seem like he necessarily is. So that's where I'm like, if he really wants to go and we can get some money, then okay. But I would much rather see him stay because I think he is a good player for us. Those are kind of all my questions. I know it's kind of all over the place. The board's insane. They've lost their damn minds.
I was going to say, this is very much part of the course for just what this club is at the moment. All over the place.
And hopefully this is just, I don't know what you're expecting with an episode coming out of that Mainz match going in an international break. We don't have another game to get excited for. Like, I don't know what you wanted. Just a chaotic podcast.
Yeah, listener, it's your fault.
What did you expect from us? Yeah. The board's like, what did you expect from us? We don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Quick shout for the internationals, though. Bayer getting called up for the U21s, right? U21s, I think. And then Benza Bayini called up to international duty. Jesus, we need to wrap this up. Julian Brandt, Cole Campbell getting a call up with the U20s for the USA. Pascal Gross with Germany. Seru Garassi is heading out. Gregor Kobel, already mentioned him. Daniel Malen. Mecha. I'm literally just looking
Brandt is being called up, honestly. I'm usually like, he should be there, but this is a time where I'm like, wow, out of any time in the last few years, now Nagelsmann's like, you know what?
We could see him just, I'm happy to see, again, it's all been dysfunctional. I said this last time, like, I don't know how you can necessarily expect Brandt to be overperforming or just performing at a very top level when the whole team is kind of in shambles right now. So maybe, I hope he goes out with Nagelsmann in Germany and bags a couple goals and assists. Like, I can't wait to see it. Rierson is out with the national team, Sabitzer and Schlotterbeck as well. So hopefully no one gets injured. Right now, we're just going to enjoy some time not having to think about Dortmund for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Everyone enjoy the silence for the next 2 weeks.
No, I appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to the chaos and watching the chaos that is Dortmund. From the pitch to the podcast, it's all chaotic. I will give a shout again for the Discord. If you want to join, if you want to get involved with the chat over there, it's a good time. It's really fun. I like it a lot. I also deleted Twitter from my phone, so Discord is kind of my place right now.
Nice.
I love it. And on that note, if you are not on Twitter anymore, if you made the move over to Blue Sky, we are also on Blue Sky. And I mean, I did delete Twitter from my phone. We'll still post updates on Twitter if that's your thing. I totally get it. I think it is a great space for kind of live updates, sports especially. It's just, I just wanted to leave for a bit. I didn't want to watch it, get on it on my phone. But you can get the link to all our socials, whichever one it might be, in the description of this episode. And yeah, we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. And we will see you guys sometime in the future.